Welcome back. We've got a really fun topic for all of you today. It's called Go Big or Stay Stuck. How to achieve bigger goals now.
Exactly. So, are you thinking big enough? Well, first, congratulate yourself on making one of the most important decisions of your life. Whether you got licensed yesterday, last year, or last century, you were smart enough to invest in yourself and in your future when you got into real estate. Why? Well, a quick, 2 or 3 points on this that maybe you haven't considered. Why is the real estate your best decision ever? Well,
let me ask a question, Julie, before we get into your first point.
Okay.
How would someone know whether or not they're thinking big enough?
Well, I think they could look around and say, are they happy with their surroundings currently? Can they easily see the next goal? Because if you can easily see it and easily do it and say, yeah, that's not a problem, maybe you're thinking too small. How
do you know if your next goal is you just continuing with the thinking too small? So I'm going to tell them a story, okay,
Sure.
about our own exposure.
Okay.
So you and I grew up very nice lives in Central Ohio, right? You were raised by school teachers. I was raised by a struggling entrepreneur, but somehow we ended up walking the same path with each other for the last 3 decades. So one of the things that I wasn't exposed to until I got much older, well, I'll even tell this little story. So I went to this elementary school where there was other poor kids. And as other poor kids, we all had similar lives. We had similar upbringings. We didn't go skiing. We didn't have fancy vacations, those types of experiences. And then when we went to a middle school, when my brother and I started going to a middle school, then all of a sudden we were intermingling with rich kids. And they went skiing, and they went to Europe in the summer, and they had new clothes all the time, and all these other things. And I'd never been exposed to, as a little kid, rich kids before. And I remember the first time I had that experience, I came home, and I was pissed off that I was a poor kid.
Because it was your first realization, right?
Right. And I was, what's seventh grade? 12? And I remember coming home and being mad that I was a poor kid. And it was at that very moment of that very first exposure to the fact that everyone's not poor, that I realized I didn't want to be poor either. It took that experience. Now, I want to fast forward. That, for me, was motivational in a lot of the other decisions I made from that point forward in my life. But it wasn't until Julie and I got married that we started traveling to other parts of the United States and other parts of the world, and we started rubbing elbows with people that were operating not just on the next level, but like 1,000 levels above where we were. That we really started realizing how much is available to everyone in their lives if they're to just essentially be willing to make themselves uncomfortable, put themselves in different environments. And that's what we've done on a routine basis ever since then. Anytime Julie and I feel ourselves becoming complacent mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in any way, financially, we will pick our asses up, we'll put ourselves on a plane, and we're going to go to some place where we're going to be surrounded by the people that we want to be like. And just by osmosis, you're going to start picking up the energies that are in that environment. Like I remember the first time you and I went to Southern California.
Yeah.
And we were around these people that were freaking younger than us.
Yep.
In the real estate industry. And they were making millions of dollars per year. And we talked to them, and God bless them, but they really didn't even have anywhere close to our skill set, because every time they sold something, they made 30 grand.
Right. And we made 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
For us to make 30 grand, we had to sell
10 homes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were learning, and then we went to other markets.
Yeah.
So we started shadowing top producing, very upper end agents. We went down to Cayman Island, the number one international agent for Remax at the time. We went down and visited his market because we knew that everything we wanted in life was going to be on the other side of exposing ourselves to people that thought bigger, but not just thought bigger, took bigger actions. If you go to YouTube, everyone and their brother acts like they think bigger, or Instagram. Those people might be tall hat, no cattle. Those of you in Texas know what I'm talking about. We want to be around the people that are actually doing it. And so that does take some more work. You're going to have to actually do some more homework before you decide who you're going to listen to and who you're actually going to follow for advice and for coaching and training in the most practical of senses.
Yeah. So think bigger. Allow yourself to think bigger. If it makes you uncomfortable, if you can't exactly say how you're going to accomplish something, you're probably on the right track.
Well, that is an excellent point. But I want to emphasize what you just said. When Julie and I started thinking bigger, and when many of you start to think bigger, you're going to find a lot of resistance from people in your current environment, because you're going to make them uncomfortable, because you're going to start thinking bigger, and then you're going to start sharing your bigger thoughts with them. And then if you actually follow through, you're going to start acting differently. You're going to lose weight. You're going to lose the haircut you've had since the 1990s. You're going to start, making more money. You're going to start changing your mindset and your approach to life. You're going to start changing. And don't be surprised if the people that are in your little ecosystem now, if they reject you. And some of them will do it overtly, and some of them will do it covertly. So you've got to be monitoring that. And again, this goes back to, if you're going to really make a meaningful change in your life and set bigger goals, start attaching yourselves to different environments. Environments could be a room that you're in, a mastermind that you're in. That's a great environment. Julie and I had a lot of inspiration from hanging out with Howard Britton stars. That's for damn sure. But it also could be listening to podcasts. It could be reading books. It could be just, hiring a great coach. Those are the types of things that you're going to have to really attach yourself to, because you have so many mooring lines. You have so many tethers that are trying to hold you back and keep your boat from ever going out to sea to the next, big adventure. It's going to want to be attached to your present reality, and you're going to have to, one by one, cut those ropes in order to set yourself free. So it is not a direct path to, I have a new idea. I've, just got back from, wherever, and I have all these big inspirations. You're going to have to reinforce that. And that's the reason a lot of people go to these big, walk on fire and big motivational things. And, I was thinking about this the other day, Julie. Mm-hmm. For all the money that's spent on self-help guru types, where you go to their events, you pay all this money, and you feel charged up for like a few days or a few weeks after you get back. Like, I'm going to set the world on fire. Why don't you just go to a freaking amusement park and ride the scariest ass roller coaster you can find?
Because it's that quick thrill, right?
Well, but isn't that what it is?
You're
essentially getting this big adrenal shot of something being ignited. So
that's temporary.
I'm trying to be funny, but it's also,
but it's true.
Well, for the most part, most of that stuff is temporary.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, after you go to that big event and you're walking on clouds and whatever, you come back and you're stuck in your present reality, surrounded by your the decisions you made yesterday. Like, for example, the house you're living in, the shoes on your feet, the food in your belly, the car you're driving, the relationships you have, the money you do or don't have in the bank, your relationship with God. All of these things are direct representations of the actions that you previously have taken. So if you don't like the reality that you're experiencing now in any of the most important categories, you need to blame the past version of yourself. Because the past version of yourself either didn't have the knowledge in knowing what actions to take, or did know but chose not to take those actions. So if you don't want to be in this constant state of regret about your present state, you need to start thinking about the future version of you. So what will the future version of you be really proud of you having accomplished today? What will the future version of you, it's almost impossible for humans to do this, but as much as you can, you can look back and remember things with more or less good clarity, but projecting yourself into the future, it's like, you researched this for a past podcast.
They've studied it. It literally, if they study your brain waves and all the ways that, psychiatrists study this kind of stuff, they say that picturing yourself 3 to 5 years in the future has the same pattern as thinking about a complete stranger.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. And so, to circle back to your point, why do people go to some of these things and they feel really great for an hour or for a day or for a weekend, and then they come back and they don't tend to do much about it? It's because they don't have a plan.
Well, they fall back into the same patterns, right?
Yes.
I keep on saying people, because people are the most influential things, but people also are the Facebook pages you're going to.
It's habits.
Well, look at the brokerage you're in. You're right now in a real estate brokerage where everybody basically is complacent. Everyone else is saying how bad the market is. Everyone else is bitching about this or bitching about that. You're going to absorb that. I don't care how strong your mindset is. So you're going to want to change your environment. And one of the best things that you can do is consider upgrading to join Julie and I at eXp Realty. So if you are looking for a broker upgrade, whether you're a team, you're a brokerage, you're an individual agent, we strongly encourage you to consider joining Julie and I at eXp Realty. It's without a doubt one of the top 5 business decisions we've ever made. If you want to learn more about our eXp Realty group and why literally over 1,000 agents joined with us last year, there's a link below. Whether you're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, there's a link below. You can just click it and click the whylibertas.com link, and you can learn more about our group. Or if you're ready to go ahead and move forward and join eXp, and you're looking for a sponsor that's going to be very proactive in your success, we're formally applying for that job. So you can text me directly at 512-758-0206. 512-758-0206. If you want to be around the right people, if you want to be in an environment where it's going to be conducive to you becoming the best version of yourself as a real estate practitioner and otherwise, give this a shot, because this is going to be what many of you have been looking for. And in many ways, eXp Realty is going to be a vastly superior, frankly, way for you to make money than what you're doing now at your current brokerage. So let's have that conversation. Either go to ylibertas.com, click the link below, or if you're ready to join, text me directly at 512-758-0206.
Absolutely. That's a great example of the brokerage, because, we do hear about this all the time. My favorite one is when, my anti-favorite one is when brokers or team leaders will say, oh, it's okay to just take 50% of what you go on. That's enabling you to fail. If you are hearing that at all, you are in the wrong place or on the wrong team.
Well, how about this, Julie? When agents they become Premier Coaching clients, and they are with, they're using the pre-listing pack.
Yep.
Their dyed-in-the-wool, ancient broker sees the communications guarantee or sees some of the other
USPs.
The USPs that we teach you guys to use as part of Premier Coaching.
Those
and
are unique selling propositions.
And as part of Premier Coaching and Ethical Real Estate Professional. And the broker's got a problem with it. Or the broker says, well, I don't want you, giving people, a communications guarantee, or I don't like your marketing plan, or you got to do all your branding. Like some of you guys with these big brokerages, and the brokerage is offering to do free marketing for you, and their branding is all over your marketing. They're not doing free branding for you. They're doing branding for themselves. You just think because your name is somewhere on the postcard that's benefiting you. It's benefiting Compass, for example. It's not benefiting Bob and Betty. So think about this. Really, at the end of the day, guys, this is your business. You are an entrepreneur. You have to be making business decisions about what's best for you. And I know emotionally that's hard for a lot of people to do, especially when they're attached to folks at the brokerage. But, look to see what your net sheet is, look what your net income is every year, and start there. And ask yourself why it is that you decided to get into the real estate business. And ultimately, a lot of people get into the real estate business because they have the goal, swinging back to you, Julie, of having some resemblance of financial freedom. But you're now discovering that that's harder to do than you thought. So you wanted to be able to sell real estate, you wanted to be able to make profit, and you want to essentially have enough profit left over that you can invest it in things that will make you money passively. That's what we're going to teach you to do as part of Premier Coaching. That's our main focus. The product of your business is profit. And if you're not making profit, you're running a non-profit real estate practice. And you got to, at some point, ask yourself why you're doing it and what you need to do to change your outcome. And a lot of it's going to be with your approach. We're going to show you how to sell real estate. And a lot of it's also going to be with the amount of money that you're paying to your broker. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we have literally thousands of agents that join us at eXp Realty every year. Change your environment, change your outcome. It's very obvious.
So, are you thinking big enough? Remember, with your real estate sales skills, you have no income cap, right? You're only limited by your skill set, which is infinitely upgradable, inexpensive, readily available through coaching, of course. Your skills are portable. If you decide that you want to move, you want to upgrade your average sale price, maybe you want to upgrade your weather. Maybe you've always wanted to live on the beach. Well, you can get licensed virtually anywhere in the world and be up and running in less than 90 days. I have a video out about how to get licensed the first time. You can do that. You can move pretty easily. You don't have to buy your inventory. Everybody needs a place to live. Everybody all the time is thinking about housing. They're thinking about renting, buying, selling, investing. In other words, you have no excuses. You are in control.
But that's actually, again, a subtle but good point. There's going to be so many baby boomers. They already are. But the amount of people that are going to be wanting to move to the no-tax, warm weather states is extraordinary.
Huge. So, why do you think Texas and Florida are getting all the people?
It's not just, but it's Tennessee too.
Tennessee. Yeah.
Maybe you don't want to live in Texas or Florida. Maybe you want to live in some other state. And there's lots of states that are welcoming, essentially retirees. If you think that's somewhere on your horizon, 5 or 10 years, you want to probably be moving your plans up regardless of what interest rates are. Because if you're going to try to wait into the future when the interest rates are lower, you're going to most likely be trying to buy into a market with there's a lot of competition from other buyers and the price is going to be much higher. So, measure all that
cheaper.
out.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, that's a great goal. So maybe your goal was to, in the next 5 years, these are the 10 things I want to accomplish. Why don't you, instead of waiting 5 years to accomplish those 10 goals, why don't you decide to do it in the next 24 months? Too easy? Why don't you decide to do it in the next 12 months? You underestimate what you're able to do in a short period of time when you truly decide to stay focused on the accomplishment of that goal.
That's exactly right. So, speaking of goal setting, you can, of course, refer to our best-selling book, Harris Rules. We've got tons of goal setting in there. Premier Coaching, we talk about all the time, goals to drill down on. Your real estate treasure map, which you get with Premier Coaching. So, again, no excuses, but let's get into this. And did we mention on today's podcast how to get the notes? Because we are talking about some specific goal setting techniques.
They should know if they listen every day, which most of them do. Thousands do every day. But just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. harrisrealestatedaily.com is our newsletter that is free. Just subscribe. Remember, you've got to go to your email after you've dropped in your main email and double opt in. You have to confirm you want the subscription. And then that is the only place you can get all of our notes and also the video of that day's podcast, a lot of other good stuff. So harrisrealestatedaily.com.
Okay, so again, overview of goal setting. This is not coaching, this is the podcast, so keep that in mind. Goals have to be SMART. That stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. We're going to take a couple of examples in a second, but first write down the 5 areas of life to set and achieve your goals. We're going to get your brain working here. 5 areas of life: family, financial, physical, mental or spiritual, and educational. And again, if I'm going too fast for you, get the newsletter. All right. Now, note to self, do not strive for perfect balance in those 5 areas. Naturally, you're going to have big goals in some areas and micro goals in others. Your goals are going to be upgraded as you achieve them. So let's deep dive into the most obvious one, and that's financial. Most agents say, I want to or I need to save more money or make more money, right? So as stated, I need to make more money. Everybody says that all the time. Well, that's just a dream. To turn it into a goal, you've got to apply the SMART rules, right? So it can become a goal and not just a dream. Again, the coaches work a lot with you guys on this.
And this is all included in the real estate treasure map that they get in the first level when they join Premier Coaching.
That's right. So I want to make more money. All right. Point number 1, be specific and measurable about your financial goal. How much more money? $1? $1 million? $10,000? Why that much? What's the amount based on? Maybe it's a reserve fund of 6 months, or maybe it's a down payment for your next house. Maybe you are somebody that wants to move to a different state, and maybe that state has an average sale price 3 times where you live. Well, be specific and measurable about what that financial goal is. All right, number 2, make your goal attainable. Remember, we're using the SMART acronym here. Make your goal attainable. Is it possible? How many transactions would it take to get you there based on your average net commission? How does that compare to your averages currently? I'm going kind of fast because they can get the notes, right?
Yep.
So number 3, make your goals realistic. How realistic is your goal? Is it 2 times what you know you can do, or is it 100 times that goal? Should you make your goal more incremental so it's more realistic? Maybe you can't see doing it in the next 2 years, but maybe you can get partway there in the next 6 months. So adjust accordingly. Make it realistic.
Julie, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
So and I want you to jump in the time machine, the Julie time machine.
Okay.
So after you accomplish the first things that most people want to focus on, this is going back into when we're in our 20s. You want to have a house. You want to have some resemblance of financial security, maybe 90 days of savings. Mm-hmm. And then, maybe you're going to buy yourself some niceties and go on a couple of vacations.
Sure.
Over time, wash, rinsing, and repeating, that stuff becomes boring.
It does.
Right? And so your heart, at least I remember mine did, is always looking for, well, what's the real damn point of all this? Mm-hmm. Because really selling real estate at scale is boring as hell.
It is. It is a lot of lather, rinse, repeat.
Especially when you're being proactive at lead generation. Look, that's just the truth. And guys, the most boring businesses are almost always the most profitable.
Also, the better you get at it, the more boring it becomes.
It's true, because you don't have to think about doing it anymore. It just comes naturally. You can pick up the phone and call an expired, make 10 contacts and set 5 appointments pretty easily. But that sounds wonderful, and it is, but it's also boring. It's not a challenge. Mm-hmm. And so when that boring enters in, you start to wonder, well, what am I doing this for? What's the point of this? Like, I don't even remotely feel fulfilled. And then you get a lot of confusion that enters in. So we're going to give you 2 suggestions. Number 1, don't try to make what you're doing. Don't try to think that you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Be passionate about the results of what comes from what you're doing. I'm going to say that again. You do not have to be passionate about selling real estate or being a doctor or being a lawyer or being a garbage man or being anything. You have to be passionate for what comes as a result. Julie, what does that mean?
Well, what comes as a result is building the life of your dreams. I mean, that's as clearly as I can state it, right? And I think you bring up an interesting point when it does become boring. And that can be many flavors. It doesn't have to be boring like in terms of a super top producer. It could be boring in terms of like you pretty much know how to do the business and it just seems like you're going from deal to deal to deal, right?
It's Groundhog Day.
It's Groundhog Day. And we can speak to that because we've walked in your shoes, right? So that's not really what you got into the business for, is it? What you got into the business for was freedom.
Well, that's exactly where I was going. She read my mind. And so what does that mean? So rich is when your money works for you and you no longer have to work for your money. I'm going to give you a suggestion. And this is just an idea. Maybe it resonates, maybe it doesn't. Make it so that your mission from your business, what your ultimate goal is, isn't a bigger house or a bigger car or all the other things. Maybe what your real mission should be, and just let this, bounce around your mind a bit, is total and complete financial freedom. Make it so that you have enough money coming from, let's say, for example, I'll give you guys a real specific example. If you have $1 million in this S&P 500 over the last, I think it's 20 years, pretty sure it's 20 years, that $1 million with appreciation, and I'm pretty sure this doesn't even include dividends, this is just appreciation, is gone up by 13%, 12 or 13, I think it's 12.6% per year. So if you had $1 million in the stock market in the last 20 years, that $1 million was throwing off roughly $120,000 a year. You could have, if that were your $1 million, pulled out that $120,000 a year and lived off of it. When you go to a financial planner, what they tell you, and by the way, guys, I did say S&P 500. Just trust your, good friend Tim on that one. You don't need to overthink it. S&P 500, Vanguard index funds, gonna win the game 9 times out of 10. So if you are working your ass off, you're realizing that you've gotten really good at what you're doing, skills-wise, you could always do a little better here and there, but for the most part, you're a home run hitter, and you're really looking for what's next, and you've already chased all the things that there are to chase, I'll suggest that you make the big goal financial freedom, where you have enough money, where your money is finally working for you, and you no longer have to work for your money. So if you, for example, have a personal burn rate, in most of our top producing agents, it's always the same number, between $20,000 and $30,000 a month. This is just what private schools and all the rest of it. Now, if you're living in a place like Murphy, North Carolina, you're going to be living a very great quality of life on like $5,000 or $6,000 a month. If you're living in Columbus, Ohio, a great quality of life is probably $15,000 a month. So adjust accordingly. But whatever that monthly amount of money is that you need, if you've got that money coming in passively from, for example, having the money invested in the S&P 500, you are going to discover a level of reality that you didn't even know existed. You won't stop working, but the nature of how the work feels will be different. Because yes, you can start picking your customers more, but because you no longer have to earn the money to pay your bills are automatically paid. You are, by definition, rich.
And free.
And free. Everything changes. What really wears people out and what really makes people feel dissatisfied, disconnected, is the constant having to be in the hamster wheel and having to earn money constantly, and they don't know any other way. And I'll be honest with you guys, it's really freaking hard to do what I just said, because a lot of us are in environments where the taxes are too high, where we essentially have too high burn rates, all these other types of things. So you're going to have to take a different approach to life. But if you really want, if you're at that point where you're looking for something that's going to be really meaningful in your life, a goal, which is the topic of today's show, I'll suggest you start on the journey of becoming financially free, where you have enough money coming in passively so you no longer have to work for the money just comes in. So for example, if you had to earn, $10,000 a month, you have $1 million in the S&P 500. If you wanted to pull out $10,000 a month, you'd never touch your principal. If you had to earn $10,000 a month in the S&P 500 to pay your bills, if you have to earn $10,000 a month to pay your bills, but you've got $2 million in the S&P 500 and you want to pull it all out, then you're now making double from passive investing than you need to actually earn to pay all of your bills. What the strong advice is, just so you guys know, is that if the S&P 500 is appreciated on average, like over the long period of time, like I think since the beginning, it's like 7% per year. But the best thing to do is never have to pull out more than 3.5% to 4% of wherever the total value is. So if you have $1 million in the S&P you pull out, $40,000 per year, because then over time, the market, it will still cause the investment to appreciate, but you can start living off that. You don't have to wait until you're old and gray in order for you to live off passive income if you decide to make it a priority. If you decide to maybe not make yourself, like for example, a lot of you guys spend money on branding and marketing, trying to make yourselves famous because that's what the world tells you, that you have to appear famous in order to be successful. Well, if your new benchmark to be successful is to be rich, where your money's working for you, you're no longer having to work for your money, you're going to start looking at life through a different set of lenses, aren't you? So when someone hits you up with a marketing and branding idea and how you're going to be the mayor of your town, your first thought's going to be, does this get me to the goal of being rich, where my money is working for me and I'm no longer having to work for my money? Is this going to be something that's just supposed to, appease my ego and make me feel recognition and all those things? Or is this actually going to help me to get to the point where I've got enough money coming in passively? You guys get the point? This is going to set, for some of you, your lives in a new direction, that all of a sudden you're going to find that spark that maybe you haven't felt for a long time. Because you're going to realize that closer into your future than you think, you can actually be waking up in the morning every morning and having enough money coming in passively that if you chose to, you wouldn't have to work anymore. How about that? Does that not motivate you? You know what I'll tell you? A lot of people, when I presented this before on one-on-one calls and otherwise, they get shocked because they don't know what they would do if they didn't have to be in the hamster wheel. But here's the fact, is the closer you get to that, you're going to start discovering there's different, you'll figure it out,
Yeah.
right? There's different passions and different callings and different missions that God has in store for you once you remove the need to be grinding it out every single day. That is a bigger goal than maybe some of you had considered. It's not about buying a Bugatti. It's about having the ability to buy the Bugatti and choosing not to, because you'd rather put that money into something that's going to produce passive income for you.
Well, that's exactly right. And here's the thing. What you said is probably making some of our listeners say, well, okay, I love your $1 million example, but I don't have $1 million. How do I start? And remember, I will refer them back to, we did a 4-part podcast series where we talked about the stages of wealth, right? So you're going to get there faster if you start when you start today, even if you don't have, maybe some of you do have assets that maybe you just sell and you can invest that $1 million in a different place. Some of you are used to earning $1 million GCI. A lot of my elite coaching clients are right there. It's just that the investment part of this is a bit out of the normal real estate wheelhouse. And what do most agents do? When they get bored, they have lifestyle creep.
Yep.
Or they ruin their relationships.
Yep.
Or they develop a drug or alcohol problem.
Yep.
Or some mixture of those three things. Not just real estate people, but people when they get bored.
Well, it's because things have become easy and they're bored.
They want that hit again.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So what Julie's saying, so insightful, right? So that's what a lot of people do. And if you look at, depending what your age is, you're going to see this manifesting in different ways. But once things start getting easy, where people are no longer struggling, they do have a tendency to create struggle.
Right.
And so because they're not attached to something that comes after the struggle.
And the struggle was habitual for a while.
Exactly. It gave them a sense of identity. Well, I would like you to consider, humbly I'll make the suggestion, that you make your new goal being financially free.
But you have to define what that means, okay?
Well,
because it's not the same for everybody. Financially free can be different levels.
Well, Julie's referring, she's keeping it practical. So financially free, if you have to earn $10,000 a month, is $10,000 a month.
Yes.
That's rich. Where your money's working for you, you no longer have to work for your money. So if you got $10,000, if your needs are $10,000 a month and you've got $10,000, now, not from your team, okay? Not from anything that you have to put effort into. And the S&P 500 is not something you have to put effort into. Not even necessarily rental property, so that's pretty close. I could be convinced of that one. But I'm talking about something that's completely and totally not requiring your labor.
Non-transactional.
Non-transactional, not tied to a real estate deal, not tied to anything that you have to put effort into. That's totally, like, here's an interesting fact. Most first-generation millionaires and multimillionaires make it in, guess what? Real estate. And what do most first-generation millionaires and multimillionaires, when they want to become decamillionaires, that's 10 million plus, let alone, worth over 100 million, they get into private equity. They start doing investing. Every single person that I know, that Julie and I know, with the exception of the people that are large scale real estate investors, where they're vertically integrated, where they're going to do the building, or they're going to do the land development, they're going to do the whole damn thing. Other than those people, every single person that we know that's made a lot of money and has built it has done it just that way. They made it in real estate. They then sold the assets when they had appreciated enough. They took the bulk of that cash. They put it into the stock market, mostly in the S&P 500, and they just live off the appreciation of the S&P 500. And it produces hassle-free cash flow for them for life. The smart money is going to be taking the money that you've put in the S&P, not spending it, letting it compound, still earn income from selling real estate, and maybe revenue share from EXP. And then you'll have multiple sources of income coming in every month that will cover your personal overhead. And then the money you don't obviously need for your personal overhead, invested that, guess where? The S&P 500.
Exactly. So my question, dear listeners, is, are you thinking big enough? That's the topic of today's goal setting chat that we're having. We can go much more deep and broad on this, as we do in coaching. One of the things that the coaches work on with you, and I work with my one-on-one clients, is where are you in your thinking bigger stage, in your wealth creation, in your freedom creation? Because whether you got licensed yesterday or last century, everybody got their license for one reason, and that's freedom, okay? So are you in the stage, as some of you are, just trying to figure out how to create a predictable, duplicatable income? Because if you don't have that, then you're not covering your monthly overhead consistently, and you can't make your investments.
And you can't skip a step either.
As much as everybody would love to hit the easy button and skip the steps, you can't just go straight to that.
Well, look what most agents do. They get into the business. They're essentially inundated with all these marketing and branding people, buyer leads, and they never learn skills.
Right.
They never
want
learn
it to be easier.
They never learn how to proactively lead generate. They never learn how to pre-qualify. They certainly never learn how to be listing agents. And then what happens is they have limits on the amount of money that they're going to ever make. They're doing deals. Like, you can always tell the agents that make the least amount of money because all they want to do is brag about their volume.
Right.
I did
That's right.
4 million. I did blah, 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 blah. The agents that we coach, what we coach you guys to go towards, is not bragging about your units or even your volume. Those things matter. Not saying that they don't. We're saying don't brag at all, number one. But two, if you want to be prideful of something, be prideful of your net income. Because it's with the net income, then you can invest that and you can start taking the micro baby steps at first, and then it compounds. That is what compounding interest is, the seventh wonder of the world, into something extraordinary. It takes time, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years, but it's a hell of a lot better than having to stay on the transactional treadmill your entire life.
That's right. So you have to learn how to make the money. You have to learn how to make it consistently. You have to learn how to keep what you made, to your point, not just about the volume. It's what you're left with at the end. Then you learn to invest it, and then you earn your freedom incrementally. And many of you are saying, well, I feel like I don't have that much time to do it, or I don't have that much extra income to invest. You're going to get there faster when you start today. Even if you start with, I think, who were you talking? You were talking to our trainer this morning. I think you guys were doing some financial goal setting, right?
Yeah.
And what, I don't remember. I only heard part of it. What his goal was?
I showed him how to basically set aside $1,064 a month, and he's 30, and I wanted to show him that by the time he was 50, how he could have $1 million inflation adjusted, though it would earn him an average of $70,000 to $80,000 a year. Again, this is inflation adjusted.
Sure.
And how much money it would take him to invest every single month in the S&P 500. I kept it very simple. And by the way, I used ChatGPT to do that.
Yes.
And it was $1,064 a month, every month for the next 20 years in his case. And it'll get him to the point by the time he's 50 that he'll essentially be financially free.
Okay, so just to summarize, you were very specific. It wasn't just like, I had to invest something every month. Okay, well, pretty much everybody listening can say that, or maybe you already are and it's more. $1,064 is specific, okay? It's also, I think, I don't know exactly how much he makes, but that sounds pretty attainable. I think that's something he could do. You had that conversation, how much seems reasonable. And then you calculated it using ChatGPT to have a time frame on it. You used the SMART goals. You didn't even know you were doing it when you did it.
But Julie,
you're so used to it.
Even if he, I didn't care, and he shouldn't either, whether or not I get what you're saying by it's attainable, but I think if your drive is strong enough to accomplish a specific goal, you're going to freaking figure it out.
You will figure it out. That's
so,
right.
so I know 1,064 a month was a lot for him. I could tell by his facial expression.
Yeah.
But if he really is driven by the accomplishment of that goal of one day being financially free, and the one day is not that far into the future, really.
Right.
I mean, between 30 and 50, it goes really freaking fast.
Yeah.
Okay. So he needs to then attach himself to the future version of himself, which is hard to do. And then he's going to figure out how to earn the extra 1,064. And by the way, 1,064 today is going to be, with inflation, equivalent of like $500 in like 7 years.
Right.
So it becomes easier, not harder, and he didn't have to increase the dollar amount. It was a flat fee of 1,064.
Yes.
I obviously tried to explain this to him, but I don't know whether it registered or not. But the moral of the story is that's what you do. You go about setting a goal. Use ChatGPT.
An incremental goal.
Right, an incremental goal. And then you're going to realize that the other key thing to any kind of financial freedom is, Julie said it, is do not increase your burn rate. So this, don't make it so that you're just constantly upgrading your lifestyle. That's kind of an exercise in futility, because the incremental enjoyment that you get every time you do the upgrade is reduced by a dramatic amount to the point where it wasn't really worth doing. So just keep that in mind. Any closing thoughts?
Well, I was just thinking about your conversation with Manuel about investing. It wasn't that long ago that you were talking to him about how to create consistent income, which was the first stage. And now he's there. Now he's got more clients, right? Okay. So to your point, he got to work and figured it out. So maybe for some of you, that's where you are right now, is you're in that stage. Well, I gotta take care of my family first. So I gotta take care of my overhead. I've got to get to that consistent income.
But don't you think that is true? But don't you think a lot of that is lack of exposure?
It is lack of exposure.
So,
you've got to know that you can do it.
Right. If you're just basically working to your comfort zone, and you don't, and everyone else around you is living that same sort of hand to mouth. That's how I grew up.
You're the biggest fish in the pond kind of thing.
Yeah. Or in my case, I wasn't. But yes, you get the idea. You're never going to really feel. You're not going to be drawn towards something. Again, I think it's such a blessing that these guys have podcasts and YouTube and books and all these other things you can get free exposure to. But that does go ultimately to a real, I think, problem that exists in society nowadays, is that knowing who to listen to. Because there's so many false prophets out there that want to just suck all your profit. And I hear this all the time, especially in the coaching and training space. All these self-proclaimed gurus who've never done anything other than selling the belief to other people that they're a guru to help you accomplish your goals. The only real goal that they have accomplished is convincing you that they can help you accomplish your goals. They have no real practical, tactical approach to anything, and they've never done anything other than marketed their being a prophet. I don't know how else to explain it other than that. And so unless you are going to take the time to do the real work and explore and investigate and really trust your intuition about who you're listening to, you could easily lose a year, 10 years, 20 years because you are following really shitty advice. And there's so much of that out, especially because of the internet, that it's hard to really know who to listen to, who not to listen to. What's your advice on that?
Well, have they done it before? It's like when you hire somebody to be your fitness coach, if they themselves don't look like they've ever worked out before, probably not a great fitness coach, not to be too blunt. I'm just saying, right? So have they actually done it before? In our case, have you actually sold real estate before? Have you invested before? Have you been successful at the things that you set your goals for?
Well, you just said something. So look, who are what I think arguably one of our biggest competitors. And I know you guys don't like it when I'm not going to mention names, but I'm just stating facts, has never sold real estate before. And what does he tell you guys to do? Marketing and branding. Primarily marketing and branding.
And to try a lot of things
And
out.
occasionally he'll slip in being a proactive lead generator. But for the most part, it's the marketing and the branding. He's never sold real estate before. He's never had a real estate license before. And yet, people believe that he knows what the hell he's talking about selling real estate. What he knows how to do, and he does it really well, is he knows how to sell you guys into the belief that he knows what the hell he's talking about, because he's talking about marketing and branding. The thing about marketing and branding is there's no way to know whether it's really working. And so there's no way to really truly hold somebody accountable to whether or not what they're teaching you to do is truly working. You guys get it? That's the big fallacy of marketing and branding. There's no real way of knowing whether it works. Like when you're doing proactive lead generation, and Julie and I are telling you to call expired listings, for example, we can actually track numbers How many dials did you make? How many contacts did you make? How many appointments did you set? How many listings did you take? That's real progress. And then through coaching and training, we can actually log. You can hold us accountable. We can hold you accountable to whether you're getting better at those specific skills. That's called real coaching and training. If your coaching and training program now is telling you to simply make more videos, that's not coaching and training. I don't even know what the hell that is.
I don't either. I mean, there's so many different things that go on in my mind when you talk about it. I was thinking about, the things that we teach have statistically higher results because, for example, when you talk to 10 expireds, you're talking to 10 people who want to sell their house.
Yeah.
When you make a video, maybe somebody someday is going to possibly want to sell their house with you or without you, but when they go to YouTube, TikTok, etc., they didn't go find a realtor. They went there to be entertained. They went there to have a 30-second hit of something interesting, and it could be you or it could be a cat video. You don't know. So we just like to keep it practical and tactical and based on facts, right? That when you talk to, whether it's expireds or for sale by owners or probate or even doing open house lead follow-up.
And for the record, Julie loves cat videos. So, I mean,
So
her and
too.
Zoe, we were just sitting on a plane for 3 hours, and her and Zoe were sending me messages about these funny cat videos, of which I watch none of them because I don't like cat videos.
She loves cooking with cats.
Cooking with cats. It's an actual genre. We're not making that up.
Hilarious.
So, I want you guys to visualize this. It's a cat in a chef's uniform making freaking food. Now, I want you to think, would you ever eat anything a cat made?
No,
I mean,
definitely
no,
not.
right? Full stop.
Even the cats don't like eating much.
Exactly.
But then the next thing that comes up on her feed might be, an agent doing a dance or something. I don't know. I'm just saying people don't go there to go list their house today. The things that we teach are to get you more qualified appointments, more at-bats, more listings, more buyer sales, so that you can think bigger. The topic of today's call. You have control. There is no income limit in real estate. Huh?
You said the topic of today's call.
I'm sorry.
That's funny.
I'm always
Julie-
thinking about coaching calls. The topic of today's podcast is thinking bigger, right? And you can say thank you past fill in your name. Thank you past Bill or Betty, right? Our favorite examples for having your act together and doing the things that first got you the consistent income and then got you consistently investing so that you can have that freedom that you got your license for in the first place.
So if you're looking for a meaningful goal that will have the most meaningful impact long term, I want you to find something other than freedom. I've never been able to find one. Find something other than freedom. Give yourself permission to wake up in the morning and never have to worry about money again. Look, guys, I'm as guilty as this as any of you are. If you grew up with no money and your life has been all about the struggle, removing the struggle from your life, it does create a massive vacuum that will need to be filled. And there's a lot of ways to do that that are not destructive, back to our previous point. Mm-hmm. But give yourself permission to be free. And you don't have to wait until you're whatever the hell retiring means either. Give yourself permission to be free from having to worry about money anymore. And I'll close today with one little scene that hopefully all of you will remember. Forrest Gump, sitting on a park bench. You guys remember this in the movie. If you haven't seen Forrest Gump, some people don't like Forrest Gump.
I can't imagine why.
I can't imagine liking somebody who doesn't like Forrest Gump.
That's okay.
Imagine being a friend with someone who doesn't like Forrest Gump.
It makes
that'd
no
be like,
sense.
matter of fact, that's going to be our new prequel when we meet somebody. Do you like Forrest Gump? No? Okay, good. You just saved me a lot of work. All right. So you're sitting on a park bench. He's sitting on a park bench. You guys remember the box of chocolates, and I think it was a lady that he was talking to, and he had this Time magazine, and he was showing, he was talking about Lieutenant Dan invested him into some big fruit company. You guys remember that? And we made all this money from Bubba Gump Shrimp, and he invested all the money in some fruit company. And the lady gets up and leaves, and he slowly pulls out this cover of this magazine. It was Time magazine or something. And it was Apple. That was the fruit company. Of course, he was saying fruit company because he thought it was, Apple as in Steve Jobs. And then he said, when it came to essentially the impact that not having to think about money had on his life, he just said this one line, and Julie and I say this to each other because it's hilarious. Not having to worry about money anymore is just one less thing.
It's just one less thing.
That's what he said. Well, it's just one less thing, as in one less thing to worry about. I thought that was funny. Hopefully you guys are laughing too.
So move closer to one less thing to worry about, guys.
Yeah, and if you're looking for a real purpose, a real drive, you're looking for your big why, if you're looking for your whatever it is, borrow that one. That's a good one. Freedom. Because with that, when you create that freedom in your life, what will come into your life? And again, filter out the negatives. What will come into your life? What will you all of a sudden become? What are the thoughts you'll have? I can't get off this topic because I genuinely have passion for this topic. But will you live in the same place? Will you have the same friends? Maybe yes in both, right? Will you vote for the same politicians? If you no longer have to worry about money, or your money is working for you, you no longer have to work for your money. Will you vacation in the same places? Will you have the same hobbies? What will change? And I have news for you. Everything will change for the better. Because a lot of the decisions you're making about the life that you're living is because you have to earn a living. And as soon as you don't have to earn a living anymore, you're going to start thinking differently because your soul is going to be free to wander. And that's exactly what it'll do. That is something that if someone tried to explain that to me when I was younger, I would have had absolutely no connection to it, no idea what you meant. But as the years have progressed, and as Julie and I fortunately become financially free, I can totally understand. It drives me even more to try to help you guys understand that if you're looking for your big why, as a lot of people try to waste lots of time trying to explain to you why you need to have your big why. Well, if there is such a thing and you need to be searching for it, maybe just the idea that removing finances, removing the need to worry about money, if that's completely off the table for you for the rest of your life, that to me is a pretty damn good driver for motivation to help you to push through the resistance to doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. Won't that help you to pick up the phone when you know on the other side of that's going to be a listing that's going to get you that much closer to financial freedom? When you have to deal with that cranky buyer, that you don't want to deal with, you want to just tell them to go jump in the lake, but it's going to get you that much closer to financial freedom. When you don't want to practice your for sale by owner scripts, when you don't want to, all the things, all the real work of real estate, but knowing that a certain percent of that commission is going to go to helping you become financially free, doesn't that make you feel a little bit of a spark that maybe you didn't have before? Maybe it's the spark, the very spark that you now can throw in the pile of wood that you can make into a huge bonfire. I encourage you to at least consider that. And for a handful of you, not all of you, it's going to be what you were searching for.
That's right. This is in your control. A lot of you feel like you're out of control all the time in this business. This is absolutely something that is within your control. Now, at the end of the podcast, because we're going to wrap up here, I want you to write down 2 or 3 things that will make all the difference to you for your homework. Obviously, one of them should be join Premier Coaching unless you're already one of our Premier Coaching members. If you are, then we'll see you on your daily semi-private coaching session, of course, where we can talk about more of this type of thing. If you're not, then join Premier Coaching so that you can get the support that you need. But what are the other things that you're going to do, that you're going to take action on so that this wasn't just another great podcast that you really enjoyed listening to? What are you going to do to get closer to freedom?
Well, that's it. That's the bottom line. But joining Premier Coaching, you're going to download the Real Estate Treasure Map, which is your fill-in-the-blank life and business plan. And that is going to be essentially the step-by-step guide to accomplishing at least the plan to get you to financial freedom. Thank you for keeping this one of the #1 daily listened to podcasts for real estate professionals in at least the United States. Thank you for all your 5-star reviews. Thank you for so many of the wonderful comments you guys send to us on Instagram, on iTunes, on YouTube. We really sincerely appreciate all your support. We are in alignment with our souls, doing what we know that God put us on this earth to do, which is being of service to all of you. Please take the education, please take the motivation to now get into action and be of service to other people and be in alignment with your soul, which is, your alignment with God, which is you being the best version of yourself as a real estate practitioner. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.